Welcome to MegaBucks Radio. Conversations with successful entrepreneurs, sharing their tips and strategies for success. Real-world ideas that can put MegaBucks in your bank account. Here's your host, Nina Hershberger.
Welcome to today's show. My name is Nina Hershberger, and today I have with me my guest is Jack Turk. And Jack has decades of experience writing. He's a writer, copywriting, a writer specifically, and he's written for all sorts of businesses, including dentists, attorneys, even magicians, and managed service providers or IT kind of specialists. And from 2012 to 2015, he was the head copywriter at GKIC, where he became the voice of Dan Kennedy. But before we get started, and thank you, Jack, for joining me on today's call, but he also performed radio comedy shows, and his friend that he performed it with is Tim Allen, which I'm fascinated to start the call today, Jack, with that story.
Oh, well, that goes way back to when I got into writing. I mean, if you don't mind me expounding on that for a second.
Yes.
I went to college, and again, thank you for having me on here, Nina. I really appreciate it. It's so much.
My pleasure.
It's so much fun to be here. When I was in high school, I was always kind of technical. You know, I was in chemistry and physics and took all those classes, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted to be a scientist, and so I managed to wrangle a scholarship at Western Michigan University in the paper science department. So I was going to be a paper chemist. And that's really technical and, chemistry and a mathematics minor and stuff. And kind of diddly-bopping my way through that a few years. And I saw an ad in the student newspaper that said, "Are you funny? Can you be funny?" And I thought, well, I'd give a shot. So I took the little test. And what it was to do this, a group of students had gotten together to create like radio comedies for the student radio station. And so we got together. The name of the group was Five Finger Salute, which is basically, you stick your thumb on your nose, you wiggle the other fingers, that kind of thing. That's sort of what it really stood for. And we did for over 2 years. We did, probably, about a dozen or so different little half-hour. One of our episodes was an hour radio shows, where we did a bunch of skits, threw in sound effects, et cetera, et cetera. That classic radio comedy. We had a blast. It was just a blast. And it got me into change my major, because I thought this is a heck of a lot more fun than doing chemistry. I'm making paper. So I got into creative writing instead of my major. And one of the guys in our group was Tim Allen. His name wasn't Tim Allen. It was his official. His real name is Timothy Dick. And he changed his name for whatever reasons you can imagine, as he went into the field of entertainment and comedy and stuff. But I've known Tim since like the late 70s. I actually appeared on television with him once around 1978, I believe, at 1 o'clock in the morning on a local TV station that was it was a horrible TV show. Just a horrible, all he did was it was called Up Late with Doug Ekman. And what he would do, he would just pan a camera around this empty studio and play music. So we approached him and said, "Hey, we'll do some skits." And so we actually went and did some skits, and I appeared on TV with Tim way back when.
Interesting. Well, Western Michigan. So you were in Kalamazoo, Michigan then?
That's correct. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because
I'm from northern Indiana. Yeah. So that's interesting. I didn't realize he was from that area, or at least I suppose he went to school there. Doesn't mean he was from there.
Oh, yeah. Tim is from the east side. Yeah, Tim is from Detroit, and I was from a little town called Constantine, which is about 30 miles south of Kalamazoo. That's where I grew up.
Yeah. I grew up in Elkhart, so I absolutely know where Constantine is.
Oh, gosh. So you're it. You're the only other one.
Well, so that was interesting. That got you into creative writing. Well, obviously, copywriting is much different than traditional kind of creative writing. So let's get started and talk about, copywriting. Obviously, Dan Kennedy, which we both have followed for years and years, and you became the voice of his for many years, probably probably, well, maybe started with Gary Halbert or somebody. But anyway, give me your definition of copywriting.
Well, Dan Kennedy's essentially, it's got to persuade to take an action. It's direct response. Dan's the master of direct response in magnetic marketing. And the whole point of copywriting is writing a letter, a postcard, a headline, a video sales letter, whatever, with a goal of persuading someone to take an action. Now, that action could be to click a button to opt in to provide information about your name, your email address, contact information, maybe to make a sale, maybe to set up a phone call, whatever. But it's got to have some call to action in it. That's how I define it. There's got to be a call to action.
So when you were writing for Dan's Voice, was that tough? I mean, how did you get into that mode?
Learning to write like Dan basically required that I immerse myself in Dan. And I listened to Dan. I listened to his recordings. I read his books. I read his emails. I read everything I could from Dan. I bought I involved in the courses. I just immersed myself 1,000% into Dan, so I understood, where he was coming from. Honestly, I'll share something. Like when I first came on board, they did like a little test to see whether I could write like Dan. They gave me a couple things to test projects, and I did obviously I did well enough that they brought me on. But I made a huge mistake that they didn't ding me for, in that I mentioned I wrote a test email, and I mentioned about using my cell phone as speaking as Dan.
Oh, yeah.
Dan, we both know Dan didn't have a cell phone. Dan railed against having a cell phone.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been. I'm surprised they didn't catch that. That is, anybody who's been around Dan for a long time, we know that's not possible.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me, let's go back in time, though. After you graduated from Western Michigan, then what happened? Where did you go from that point?
Well, I got out of college, and I had a degree in English, a bachelor's of English, and a minor in mathematics. Because I kept the math minor because I had enough credits accumulated that I figured, well, let's just keep going with it, and it was just fine. I kind of liked both of them. And so I go to the Michigan Employment Security Commission, for advice on career direction. And I went to the guy. I sat down, got an appointment, with the counselor, and said, so what do I do with this kind of combination of math, an English major, math minor? And the guy sitting across from me, from the government employee sitting across from me, he said, well, I guess you could flip burgers.
Oh my, that was good advice.
That was encouraging. Where I wound up, I wound up getting a sort of an administrative kind of job at a local data processing company in Kalamazoo. And I'd heard in college about the sort of a role/career path known as technical writing, where you write procedures and do for technology. And it was a technology company. And so I eventually morphed that position into a role there and it was just at the beginning of the interactive computer age, where people are starting to do terminals and there were online applications. And so I wound up writing the manuals for their applications that they installed in their clients' offices. So
I do know you did work for Microsoft and Kodak. So is that what you were doing during those years?
Yes. Yeah, I bounced around the company, around the country. I left Kalamazoo, got a job working with the U.S. Army in San Antonio, Texas. Did that for a couple of years was a technical writer there. Went to the East Coast, did a job there with Kodak, a subsidiary of Kodak, and did technical writing there. And that's how I wound up at Microsoft, where I got a job as a technical writer in the multimedia systems group. And I wrote manuals and online stuff. I did the first help file for Windows Media Player. I wrote the first programmer documentation for the first video for Windows stuff. I had a fun career at Microsoft. I worked on great projects. I worked on Flight Simulator, Age of Empires, worked on Xbox games. I had a really enjoyable career.
Well, after I finished college, I worked in IT for many years as well. So I understand what you're technical writing, but that's pretty boring, and that certainly isn't persuading anybody to buy something. So how did you get into copywriting?
Well, I've always been into magic. I've always been a magician. Ever since I was like 5 years old, I can remember watching The Magical Land of Alakazam with Mark Wilson, who was a wonderful magician. He had that on Saturday mornings, and I thought this was the greatest thing ever. And I wanted to be a magician. And I remember getting a little shoebox and putting a ball in it, rubber ball in it, putting the lid on, waving a Tinker toy over it as a wand and going, abracadabra, hoping that the ball would disappear, but it didn't. So I figured, I got to figure this out. So I learned. Our little library in town had a few books on magic. Well, you're in that area. You grew up in that area. You've heard of Colon, Michigan, right?
Yeah, right.
The magic capital of the world. That's only like a half-hour drive. And my mom would drive me to Colon, to Abbott's Magic Factory there, and buy me some tricks. And I bought books. And so I learned to be a magician. I was always into magic, just always and over the years, I did shows kind of on the side here and there. And I wound up doing shows. I was reasonable. I wound up doing shows like basically through agents. Agents would get me shows. And but I saw one while working at Microsoft. I saw an ad in like the Magic magazine, which I belong to the International Brotherhood of Magicians. I'm actually Order of Merlin. I'm an Order of Merlin magician in the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And let me tell you the secret to becoming the Order of Merlin. All right, you pay your dues for 25 solid years.
Yeah, you give them money. Yeah.
And then your Order of Merlin, amazingly enough. There wasn't a test or anything. But anyway, I saw this ad in my Magic magazine, which was how to make $100,000 a year as a magician. I thought, that's interesting, because I was getting kind of, I'd been at Microsoft for a long time, and I was just kind of ready to try something different. And so it was from Dave D., and it was a free report. I got the free report, which, of course, was a sales letter. In the classic Dan Kennedy lead magnet sort of style. And I bought the course on how to market yourself as a magician, and I just embraced that. I embraced it. I went all in on it. I learned all about copywriting. I thought, this is great. I just loved it. And so I learned how to market myself as a magician. And on my 50th birthday, I got good at it. And on my 50th birthday, my boss was walking into my office, putting up like a happy birthday thing. I said, "Hey, Alan, shut the door." And I quit my job to become a full-time magician and also an info marketer to magicians. And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth. I cut my teeth on learning how to market myself. And I had a really good website I had multiple websites on how to, for magicians, for being a magician. I did, and for different markets, there's like birthday parties, there's kids shows, or just being a regular magician, etc. And I also learned how to do info marketing, sell products. And so I learned how to do webinars. I learned how to do email marketing. I learned how to set up sales pages. I learned all that stuff. And so that's where I kind of cut my teeth. I worked with Dave over and over for those years. And eventually, the way it worked was I kept sending Dave money, and I kept doing stuff, and he kept, well, wait a second, you're not bad at this. How about I send you a little project? And Dave kept sending me projects. So eventually the money started coming back my way, and Dave started hiring me to do stuff with him. And I worked a lot with Dave over those years. And that's really how I learned copywriting, how I wound up at GKIC.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, fast forward, because it's now many years after even The Voice of Dan Kennedy, and you wrote a book, How to Write Killer Copy Fast. So is writing fast a really important part in copywriting?
I think it is. I think it's important for several reasons. One, if you're a copywriter, you just tend to be, most copywriters are lone wolves, and the thing that's restricting you from making more money is your ability to produce. So if you are agonizing over every word, every sentence, every paragraph, every page, It's slowing down your ability to be productive and actually generate revenue and to solve problems for your clients. Because your clients they don't want I've never had a client say, oh, I don't need it for a few months. No, never has a client ever come to me and said, I don't need this for like months and months and months. It's always, I need this now. So your ability to deliver now is so important. It makes you much higher value to them. So being able to write copy fast has such incredible value to you as a business person.
So give me some stories, some success of when you have written for some of those clients. What changed in their business? I love stories. So give me a few stories.
I'll give you one. This is one of my favorite little stories about which proves that spending a ton of time on something really doesn't matter. The amount of time you spend on a piece of copy. I had a customer who was a lawyer, and he was an attorney in New York City, and he came to me with an opportunity to serve people who had been affected by 9/11. Congress had passed some compensation, a huge chunk of change to people who had gotten cancer due to all the effects of 9/11. You know, and all the buildings crashing and all that, all the dust and and there was a huge amount of money available, and people who had lived in that neighborhood on that day, you know, were eligible if they were experiencing a number of, you know, health problems. And his practice would help them walk through the process of getting their money, getting money that was due, you know, I think due them. Actually, it was a wonderful offer. And so I sat down. I said, well, why don't you just do a postcard? You can get the addresses. You know, you can just put out a postcard and just send to like people in those neighborhoods, and if they happen and say, hey, if you've been here. So I banged out a postcard in 30 minutes, front and back copy, you know, and which told them about this. And you know, I only spent 30 minutes on it. I mean, I only had it was like a quick. It's sort of essentially like he had to have it done immediately. It was like I needed this now so he could take a jump on it, and I banged it out. He put it out, and so far, I believe he generated well over $600,000 in profits.
Well, Jack, you know, one of the things Dan will talk about is long copy. Obviously, you didn't have much space on a postcard. So how did that work then?
The key really was it identified people who knew they needed help. So the potential list was good, and the offer was just insanely good. All they had to do, if they fell into this category, they were eligible for, I forget, honestly, I think they were eligible up to six figures, like a huge amount of compensation. And so it was like, all they had to do is call to see if they're eligible. That's it. So the power of the offer and the list, I think Brian Kurtz will say over and over again, like that it's the list and the offer are 40% each of the results of, you know, attributable to the success of a piece. The copy, you know, you want to have good copy, obviously, but it's your job as a marketer and as a copywriter to really help them understand, is this the best, very, very best list? Is this the very, very best offer? Those two factors are so important, are just critical.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, so I have the wallet mailer that I've had for years, and that's what people know me in the GKIC world, obviously, is the wallet mailer lady. And people will say to me, what kind of response can I get from that? And I said, well, it all depends on your list first. Because if you're going to mail to, if you're a hearing aid company and you're going to mail to 18-year-olds, you're going to get zero response. So, you know, yeah. You were spot on, you know, the list and then the offer, that's for sure. Okay, so let's talk about, we want to talk about AI. So what you said is, got to do it fast. Obviously, you got to know the fundamentals. You've got to use the psychology. You've got to have a good list. You've got to have a good offer. But what has AI changed in the world of copywriting?
I think AI, to my mind, there's multiple uses for it. There's a lot of fuzziness about it still. A lot of people still think you can just plug in, write me a sales letter to sell my book, and it'll generate something. Well, it'll generate something, but it's not going to generate something that's really any good. It learning to use, for example, ChatGPT. To use ChatGPT, you really have to understand several things. You really have to. It's kind of stupid. I mean, it's amazing, yet it's stupid because it doesn't know your market, it doesn't know your offer, it doesn't know your voice, and you have to give it all that information as part of the prompt you provide in order for it to generate something. So it's really important. You not only have to know what you want, and it's funny. I just saw an interview with somebody I spoke with recently. You have to know what you want. You have to know what you want. You have to know what your prospect wants, and you have to know how to talk to the AI in a way that it understands. It's really important that you bring yourself up to speed in that area.
Because, obviously you did it individually, you did it by yourself, but having AI as an assistant, because that's really what it is. It really isn't your copywriter, it is your assistant
Yes.
to help you.
Yeah. I find it really useful, and I think it's even at a moderate level of expertise, you can use ChatGPT as an amazing assistant for brainstorming. You can ask it to brainstorm headlines, and it'll give you a ton of headlines. Now, I'm not going to say some of them better than others, but it'll spark ideas you probably wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So it's a great tool for brainstorming. Fantastic tool for brainstorming. I think it's like really, it almost lets you, it's almost like the world's greatest auto-generated swipe file.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, but a good copywriter that you are, I mean, you have a certain cadence with the writing as well. I have not, I mean, maybe I'm just not doing good at prompting, but I haven't found that any of the AI has the same cadence that Jack would have by writing himself.
No, it's and that's, again, that's part of what it only knows what you tell it. It's like, well, you work in data processing, so the old thing was garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And so it's very, you have to remember that when you're working with AI and ChatGPT, that the more concrete examples you can give it and clear direction you can give it for what you want it to produce, the better the end result will be.
So if you're a business owner, a local business, let's say you are an attorney, let's say you are a dentist, auto repair, or home, name the business or whatever. Do you think these days, Jack, they should learn all of this stuff themselves, or is it better to hire a professional copywriter? What's been your experience?
I think Dan, and I'm going to go back to what I remember Dan saying. If you are responsible for marketing, you got to understand marketing. You got to know. So they have to know direct response principles well enough that they can at least make an intelligent decision about it. I think that's so critical for all business. If you're going to be a direct response marketer as a small business, you at least need to understand the core principles and know what to look at and go, that looks like it's going to solve my problem, or that's totally out of left field. That ain't anything close to what I want. That doesn't mean they should become a copywriter, but it does mean they should at least know enough to recognize that's at least in the ballpark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I go back to the book with Michael Gerber, though, the E-Myth, and it's the entrepreneur myth. That's what E stands for. And if you're good at repairing cars, and you're tired of working with, for somebody, you're going to start your own repair. You're going to start your own bakery, as Michael Gerber had in the book. And instead of owning the business, you're now working in the business. So the best thing you can do is actually get out of your own way, hire people to do, repair the cars or whatever, and become very good at the marketing. Do you remember, because you're a long-term GKIC person, do you remember Dr. Greg Nielsen up in Waterford, Wisconsin? He's a chiropractor.
Okay.
Dan talked about him. I first met Dan in 1994, so I go back a long way.
Oh, good for you.
And Greg is brilliant. And our daughter was thinking about becoming a chiropractor, and he said, you know what? Here's my advice to her. Hire another chiropractor. Don't become one yourself. Just get very good at marketing. And that's exactly, in a little town of 6,000, he literally owned it and created the most amazing marketing pieces because he understood that marketing. And what happens, Jack, would you know, so many of us, we find we really love the challenge of creating something that somebody then will give you money for by whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, I remember one of the things Dave told me is because he was really good at obviously Dave was really good at marketing and really good at marketing his services as a magician. He said he loved making the sale. He just didn't like going off and doing the show that much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Do you still do magic?
Oh, now and then. I still do a few shows here and there. I kind of miss it a little bit. I got the stuff all around me still too. I got a deck of cards sitting beside me right now, and I got ropes for a rope trick. I mean, I still do the stuff.
The funny part about it is I now have some friends that are magicians. I've never been in that industry or anything, but it is a pretty close society. And if I say, well, do you know so-and-so, and they're a magician? Oh, yeah, I know that. You all know each other.
Yeah. Well, there's not that many, which is one reason I kind of got out of that as an info marketing business. There aren't that many magicians worldwide, for one thing. And the second challenge you have is to make it like a coaching program, et cetera, and typical info marketing stuff, is that most of the magicians just want to learn tricks. They'll spend like, thousands of dollars on a trick, but give them a book on, sell them a book or a course on, for $100 on marketing. Nah, I'm not going to do that. No, forget that.
Yeah, I don't like marketing. No, I want to do the magic. Yeah. So did you get to hang out with Dan personally a lot, or did you just have to read all of his stuff?
I didn't hang out with Dan that much, to be honest. He has always been very, very gracious to me. I have his fax number, and I faxed him notes back and forth a few times over the years. And when I left GKIC in 2015, I met with him, and this was like as a gift to me. He spent like a half hour with me and gave me some advice for career advice, etc. He was very gracious. He's always been very gracious to me. I have nothing but praise and kind words to say about Dan. I think Dan's amazing.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have 2 days with Dan, a small group. There was about 5 of us that got to spend a couple of days with him. And so one of them was in the basement, his famous basement.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The thing I kicked myself the most about, Jack, is I did not take more pictures of all of his walls. I don't know what was wrong with me. I mean, there's a bathroom even in the basement, and you go in there, and it's littered with stuff all over the walls. And that's the thing I regret. Let's go back to the small business owner now. Do you have any other tips, any other advice for somebody who is a small business owner and how they can increase based on writing good copy?
I think the key thing is to first embrace, understanding, direct response principles. Anything, get everything you can get from Dan. First off, without a question, Dan, the ultimate sales letter, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest thing that, I really think small business owners need to embrace the notion of like work on creating widgets and like offers. Offers are so important. They don't think in terms of that way. You know very well how, that ability to create offers. Dan talked about it over and over and over again, like bundling services, bundling products, doing something out of the ordinary. That's so important. And if you could do that, and also managing your list, understand the importance of having a list of customers and staying in contact with them and keeping up with them, and knowing who really you serve best. Those two things alone will make your copy better. I mean, frankly, just knowing your who and having amazing offers. If you just have those two things, your copy is going to be above and beyond anything else anybody else in your market is going to have, any of your competitors, because they're just going to be doing the same old stuff they've been doing forever, and everybody else does.
Well, so when you say offers, so let's say it's an auto repair guy. So they think, well, I don't have any offers. I'm just fixing cars and trucks. But they could.
Oh, there's so many things they could. Do they have like regular maintenance, like a regular maintenance program? So like, I don't want my car to break down. I mean, can you have like some sort of ongoing, like every 4 months or whatever? Not only just oil change. Jiffy Lube actually does a decent job of it. They have a communication, and they do a regular. They do the complete checkpoint analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just an oil change. They go through a whole long laundry list of things they do. They check the air in your tires, et cetera. They do a diagnostic, and they're actually really good, I think, as an example to look at for just in that industry. In an auto repair shop, they should certainly be, anybody who ever came in, they should have them on the list, and they should have, Dan talks about the customer newsletter. They should have some kind of email newsletter at a minimum. Like the local guy, here's what's going on. I mean, I just think there's so much they can be doing besides just, be here. I'm here if you need me. Well, I don't need you that often, but are there other related services you can provide me?
Well, it's interesting you said newsletter, because I was talking to somebody the other day who's looking to buy a franchise, and one particular franchise they were looking at was the UPS store. And I said, I am friends with a local UPS store owner here in our area, and he has a newsletter. I said, no, it's not really good, and he certainly doesn't mail it. And when he's not there, his staff certainly doesn't pass it out, but, and here's what she said to me. She said, newsletters don't work anymore. Everybody is so inundated with so many offers and pitches and all sorts of things. It doesn't work. What would your response be to her, Jack?
If all you're doing is sending people pitches, then I would agree. But are you actually trying to build a relationship with someone? Are you sending them stuff that's interesting? Are you trying to be interesting and different, as opposed to, oh, by the way, here's my next offer. By the way, here's my next offer. Here's like I don't think that. I agree that that's noise. So how can you stand out from the crowd in what you're sending them? Are you sending stuff that's of use to them in their lives? Like if you're a dentist, if you're sending like an email newsletter, is it all about teeth and whitening? Is that it? Every month, every week? I don't want to hear about teeth and whitening every week. I got other things. But if you send me, send me something. Here, 5 ways to save money on your health insurance, on your life insurance, or something like that. Or maybe it's springtime. Here's the 3 things you need to do in your yard to make sure it's going to be you're going to get it ready for the summer, or whatever. Or fun facts about recipes or whatever. See what I'm saying? Like, think about my life. What matters to me in my life besides, the service you're offering?
Yeah, you could even join venture with, if you're a dentist, you obviously have some business owners that come in. And so maybe you join venture and, you use their list and your list, and now you let them even put an article in there about, let's say it's an insurance agent and, how to protect your assets or, I don't know, whatever.
Right. You're offering value to they have lives. It's not, their lives do not rotate around, do not orbit around your service. Their lives orbit around, like, I got to get the kids to school today. I got to pick them up. My kids, I don't like, we were looking on vacation. What can we do for vacation this year? We're kind of a little short. We're a little tight. What fun ideas can we do to save money and actually have a wonderful vacation? All kinds of things like that. Where their lives are at. Talk to them in those terms, not just pitch.
Yeah, I talked about it, Dr. Nielsen, just a few minutes ago, but his newsletter, what he does is he puts one of his patients on the front of every single newsletter. He produces it every other month. And they're so funny, I remember one of them was, she was a hand model. Now is she a hand model? No. but he put it on there and he wrote a story about her, and I mean, it's just fun, and people love getting his newsletters because of it. So,
well, you just said such an important thing. Do people want to be taught or sold to, or do they want to be entertained?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to be entertained? We all love to be entertained. So yeah, be willing. And Dan, I think the whole outrageous advertising stuff. Be willing to be different. Be willing to be yourself. Be a regular human being. Be, whatever your quirks are. Talk about your quirks. Talk about, be different. Be unusual. Don't be afraid of it.
I think one of the best things that Dan ever produced was personality in marketing. That's one of my very favorite things that he ever produced. And he talked about, you have to be a hero, but it's got a hero with a flaw. So you're right. You're saying, okay, what's my problem? I can't get this dog to quit barking. Whatever. You just have fun with it.
Oh yeah. Dan talks about, like, he's no good at, like, home repair kind of stuff. He's not he's not a handyman. He's definitely Dan's not a handyman. He can't do it. He can't hang a picture straight. Not his thing.
But here's the lesson he taught us. We know that. We know that he, had an alcohol problem at one time. We know that he's been married to the same woman twice. We know that there's certain things that he has led us into. We know he doesn't have a cell phone. We know that he hates it when the men go to the bathroom and they're talking on their cell phone while they're peeing. I mean, we know those things. And so, Jack, this has been so fun. I am looking at the clock, though, and we are almost out of time. I know there's going to be some people that are listening to this who say, I need to know more about copywriting, how to make it better, and how to use perhaps AI to do that. And I know you've got an event coming up. Tell us how somebody, if they want to be participating in that, can do that.
All right. I actually have spent a great amount of time talking with 25 other experts in copywriting, all kinds of, including Dave D. Dave's gonna talk about doing one-to-many presentations and selling on a presentation, how to do that. Rick Sposari, who is the master of video, he did the original OxyClean, George Foreman Grill, GoPro, all those massive brands. Rick is the genius behind that. I talked with them and a number of other people, and we're doing a copywriting summit February 8th through the 11th. It's totally free. 26 different speakers, because I'm including myself also. I'm going to talk about writing copy fast. And totally free, and all you have to do to sign up is just go to www.copywritingsummit.com. And all the videos, the videos range from 30 minutes to an hour, all the trained different people, amazing takeaways, amazing insights, tons of writer downers, and
it's virtual. It's all virtual, so you don't have to go anywhere.
You don't have to put on your fancy pants. You don't have to buy a plane ticket, get a hotel, sit in the bar, whatever. All that money, just sit at home and watch. Or sit in the office and watch. It's totally free, and I think I'm just so proud of the people I managed to gather, and some of the insights are incredible.
And do I understand Tim Allen might be part of it?
Well, yeah, he's actually one of the speakers. I managed to wrangle Tim to come on board for about an hour and talk about his life, a little bit about his life in television and his insights on storytelling and what he's learned and doing stories and doing stand-up and how he weaves stories into stand-up, because he'll say specifically, he doesn't tell jokes, he tells stories. And he was wonderful. I mean, he was great.
Well, that's a lesson right there in copywriting. Stories sell, right?
Oh, absolutely.
All about the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jack, this has been such a pleasure. It's been my honor to have you on the show today. I love it. I love all of the information you gave and your energy and your enthusiasm and everything. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Nina. I had a great time. I'm so honored you would have me on.
Yeah. Well, until next time, this is Nina Hershberger, and my challenge to you today is get a piece of paper out and a pencil or your computer, whichever, and start writing. Start making that first thing and copywriting there, and then sign up for Jack's event. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to MegaBucks Radio with Nina Hershberger. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit megabucksradio.com.